At Sonible, we think that the conventional way of adding reverb to your project is actually kind of bad. What we want is a coherent and clear mix with a great feeling of depth, but what we have to work with are a bunch of individual reverb instances all doing their own thing, overlapping their tails, with no clear view of what is actually going on in your project. Smart Reverb 2 gives you a new, coherent way of working with reverb. You can see where every instance sits in the mix from a single panel, make batch changes, and the reverb tails will automatically set themselves up not to overlap. I'm going to show you how to get the most out of Smart Reverb 2 with this project. And I'll introduce you to a new way of working with reverb and finding the style that you're looking for. Let's go. The first thing we'll need to do is some basic prep work. Smart Reverb 2 is content aware. That means it will generate a custom reverb tail for whatever content you're working on, emphasizing the right frequencies and making sure that your mix remains crisp and clear. To fully utilize the adaptive processing, we need to put on Smart Reverb 2 as a track effect, not as a send. So let's just go ahead and add one instance of Smart Reverb 2 to every track that we're trying to work on here. A big workflow improvement in Smart Reverb 2 is the group function. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a group. I'm going to call this mix. And then I can add every single instance in my project into this group right here. From this single window, I can access every single reverb instance that's in this group and change all of the parameters. And it's going to give me a great overview of how I'm constructing my whole project in here. Smart Reverb 2 is content aware, but we actually need to tell it what kind of content we're working on. So as the last step of our preparations, we're going to choose a fitting profile for every instance. I'm going to drag and select all of these instances, start the playback, hit this learn button up here, and then it's going to set up the custom reverb tails that I was talking about. And as I click through, I can see all of the custom reverb tails that Smart Reverb 2 has created to make sure that they don't overlap and really fit the content of the track. Now the prep work is done, let's get into the fun stuff and figure out how we want this project to sound. Rather than having a bunch of technical parameters like delay and reverb time and stuff like that, Smart Reverb 2 introduces what we call perceptive controls, which are going to more accurately reflect what you're actually listening to in your audio. So we got this big matrix right here where you can pick one reverb type out of 4 and do combinations of them. Size is going to be the size of the room that the source is playing in. Distance is going to be how far back from the listener the source is. And width is going to be the stereo width of the reverb tail. Let's start off by figuring out a type of reverb for every single one of these instances. And I'm going to start by working on the vocals. I think room is nice, natural feel. Plate is also nice, but maybe a little bit too kind of sterile and synthetic for me. Spring is definitely not it. And I think the hall reverb where we'll end up. Very nice. Very lush, very big room. I think this is sounding really good to me. Let's listen to it in the mix. I'm really enjoying that kind of bed of sound that has emerged here. Next one I want to do is the acoustic guitar. I could go for something natural again, like a room or a hall. Or let's try a spring type maybe. I think that's kind of fine, but feels actually a little bit too springy for me. But the cool thing about this matrix is that we can actually mix and match two different types of reverb. So I'll push it over to the plate again, and then just slowly dial in the spring until I'm happy with the sound. Nice. Sounds great. Okay, drums. Again, I could go for a room type reverb. But also here I want something that's not washed out at all. Hall is way too big. Spring sounds just really wacky for the drums. And I think the classic sound is, of course, a plate reverb. The next two things I want to work on are the size and the distance for this mix. So the distance is going to be how far back in a room the source is, and the size is going to be how big the room is. And I've got this fantastic front-back panel in the middle of the interface here that is just at a glance going to show me where every instance is sitting and invite some really quick and easy experimentation with different vibes. A part of the distance control is the dry-wet behavior of the plugin, but it's also dampening the highs and modifying the decay behavior that will really give you the feel of pushing a source back into a room or getting it closer to you. A big part of the size control is reverb time, but there's also delay in there and the relation of direct to indirect parts of the signal. So we're trying to really accurately model everything that makes a room sound big or small. So the rule of thumb here is, of course, that everything that is further back in the room is going to sound nice in a bigger room. Everything that's going to be closer will need a smaller size to sound really like on top of the mix. Again, I'm trying to lock in my vocals first. Right now, all of them are quite far to the front, and I've also turned down the size a little bit. And the lead vocals, those need to, I think, go pretty much all the way to the front to really sit on top of all of this. And I think the hum, that needs to go all the way to the back. Then I'm increasing the size as well. Very nice. Listen to this, like really a nice bed and house foundation is laid for those lead vocals to really like shine and have something to play off of. And then the harmonies, I think they also need to go to the back quite a lot. Maybe increase the size here as well. Very sweet. Really liking this. Amazing. And as you saw, with all of these changes I'm making, usually when you add a lot of reverb, you might have some changes to your output gain. Not an issue with Smart Reverb 2 because we've got auto gain enabled and it's always going to try to stay at essentially the same output level, so I don't have to worry about that. Next instance I'm working on are my drums, because I'm already hearing in the mix those are too far back, so I need to go a little bit to the front here. To give the whole mix some drive, they can't be washed out, so go to the front. Just a subtle like sense of place, really liking this. Alright, and then last instance, the acoustic guitar. And this is providing me with the chord progression. This is like the foundation of this song. So I think I'm gonna turn down the distance a little bit. Let's listen to the mix. This is sounding good to me. The guitar is cutting nicely through the mix. And the cool thing about this distance panel is that it's so easy to just really quickly change up the vibe and the style of your project. Let's say you might want to have the piano take the place of the guitar, push the guitar to the back. Really easy to do. I'm just gonna turn up my keys in the mix, and I'm gonna grab them here in the distance panel, push them all the way to the front, turn down the size, acoustic guitar all the way to the back, turn up the size. And now the keys are kind of taking the place of the acoustic guitar. Or maybe I'm feeling, this is a bit too airy, too spacey for me. I can just take all of these instances in the back here, move them to the front. Now it's already much tighter. Move them to the back. Or turn down the size, that will also make it feel much more intimate. You can just see how quickly I can experiment with different ideas here. The last perceptive control I want to work on is the width, which is just going to be the stereo width of the reverb tail. So once again, the rule of thumb here is everything that's further back is going to benefit from a wider width, and everything that needs to be at the front needs to have a somewhat smaller width. So I'm just going to go in here, take all of the instances at the back, crank up the width. Yeah, and I'm really liking that. I've worked on all of my perceptive controls. Let's do some fine-tuning as a last step. I want some of these instances to sound a little more sharp, a little less washed out, the drums for example. And this clarity control is going to punch out the reverb tail with the actual direct signal. So as I increase this, You can hear how there is a real like ducking effect going on in the reverb tail as soon as there is a drum hit. This is probably a little too much. Let's turn it down. Just to make this drum set sound a little tighter still in the mix. And that seems good to me. Then we can do the same thing for the lead vocals. Acoustic guitar as well, to get some of the picking in there. Alright, I'm enjoying this. Very nice. The other control that you might want to play around with is the color. I'm going to show you on the hum. So if I increase this to 100, it's going to really emphasize the highs in my reverb tail for like a cleaner, brighter sound. And if I turn it down, it's going to be a darker, moodier sound. So maybe something that's a little bit brighter might be nice. I think that's very sweet. I'm really happy with how this sounds. Let's again listen to an A-B comparison. So now it's up to you. Load it up in your project and experience a new way of working with reverb with Smart Reverb.